She trusted them. She called them uncle. For 22 years, they were the men at every family gathering, the ones who joked with her mom, the ones who played with her as a child, the ones she thought would protect her. But on one weekend, everything she believed about family, about trust, about safety, shattered. Jessica sat in that cold police interview room, her hands trembling, her voice breaking, as she looked at the officers across from her and asked a question that still haunts the air. I trusted them. They're my uncles. Why would they do this to me? This is not a story about strangers. This is not about some random attack in a dark alley. This is about something far more devastating. Betrayal by blood. This is about two men who watched Jessica grow up, who sat at her birthday parties, who knew her favorite foods, and who planned, together, to destroy her innocence in the worst way imaginable. What you're about to hear is difficult, it's painful, it's real. And it's a reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes, they look like family. Before we continue, we need your support. If this story matters to you, if you believe survivors deserve to be heard, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to this channel so we can keep telling stories that need to be told. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. Now, let's begin. Jessica Martinez, 22 years old, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She worked two jobs, one as a barista at a local coffee shop, the other as a part-time receptionist at a medical clinic. She was the kind of person who always smiled at strangers, who remembered people's coffee orders, who stayed late to help a coworker finish their shift. People loved Jessica. She was kind, she was hardworking, and she was close to her family, especially her mom, Maria. Maria had raised Jessica on her own after Jessica's father left when she was just 3 years old. It wasn't easy. Maria worked long hours as a nurse, often coming home exhausted. But she made sure Jessica never felt alone. And when Maria couldn't be there, the extended family stepped in. That's how families work, right? You lean on each other, you trust each other, you protect each other. At least, that's what Jessica believed. Enter Uncle Jeffrey, 47 years old, Maria's older brother. Jeffrey was the kind of guy who seemed to have his life together. He owned a small construction business, drove a nice truck, always had cash in his pocket. At family gatherings, he was loud, he was funny, he made everyone laugh. Kids loved him because he'd sneak them extra dessert when the parents weren't looking. Adults respected him because he seemed responsible, dependable. Jessica had known Uncle Jeffrey her entire life. When she was little, he'd give her piggyback rides. When she was a teenager, he'd slip her $20 and tell her to buy herself something nice. "Take care of yourself, kiddo," he'd say with a wink. Jessica thought he was being a good uncle. She had no idea he was grooming her. Then there was Uncle Anderson, 51 years old, Maria's cousin, but close enough to be considered an uncle. Anderson was quieter than Jeffrey, more reserved. He worked as a mechanic, lived alone in a small house on the edge of town. He wasn't as loud or as funny as Jeffrey, but he was always there, always present at every family event, always offering to help Maria with repairs around the house, always showing up when Jessica needed a ride somewhere. Jessica appreciated it. She thought Anderson was just a nice, helpful guy. She didn't notice the way he looked at her. She didn't notice how he always found excuses to be near her. She didn't notice how he and Jeffrey would exchange glances when she walked into a room. But looking back, the signs were there. Little things, strange things, things the family brushed off as nothing. Like how Jeffrey always asked Jessica personal questions. "You got a boyfriend yet? You seeing anyone special? You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Or how Anderson would show up at Jessica's workplace unannounced, claiming he was just in the neighborhood. Or how both men always insisted on being the ones to drive Jessica home after family gatherings, even when her mom offered to do it. "Let us take her, Maria. You've been working all day. We got this." Jessica's mom never questioned it. Why would she? These were her family members. These were men she trusted. These were men who were supposed to protect her daughter. But they weren't protecting Jessica. They were isolating her. They were normalizing their presence in her life. They were preparing for something terrible. It started small, so small that Jessica almost didn't notice. Jeffrey began texting her more often. Not just the usual, "Hey, how are you?" texts, but weird, probing questions. "What are you wearing today? You heading to work? You look really good in that uniform. You ever think about what kind of man you want to end up with?" Jessica felt uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. "He's just being awkward," she told herself. "He's my uncle. He doesn't mean it like that." But the texts kept coming, and they got stranger. "You know, you're not a little girl anymore. You've really grown up, Jess. I bet guys can't keep their eyes off you. If you ever need someone to talk to, really talk to, I'm here." Jessica started taking longer to respond. She'd put her phone face down on the table when she got his messages. She didn't want to look at them. She didn't want to acknowledge what they were starting to feel like. And then there was Anderson. He started showing up more, way more. At the coffee shop where Jessica worked, he'd come in during her shift, order a coffee, sit in the corner, and just watch her. Jessica noticed. Her coworkers noticed. "That guy's been staring at you for like an hour," one of them said. "Is he bothering you?" No, it's fine," Jessica said quickly. "He's my uncle. He's just checking in on me." But it didn't feel fine. It felt intrusive. It felt wrong. And when Anderson would finally leave, he'd always walk past her, lean in close, and whisper something. "You looked beautiful today, Jessica. I like watching you work. You're so focused. I'll see you soon." Jessica's stomach twisted every time. But what could she say? What could she do? "He's family. He's just being weird. I'm probably overreacting." Then came the tension between Jeffrey and Anderson. Jessica noticed it one evening at her mom's house. The whole family was there for a Sunday dinner. Jeffrey and Anderson were in the backyard, smoking cigars, talking in low voices. Jessica walked outside to grab something from her car, and the moment she stepped into their line of sight, they stopped talking. Just stopped. They both turned and looked at her. Not a friendly look, not a casual glance, a look that made her skin crawl. She hurried back inside, her heart pounding. Later that night, as the family was cleaning up, Jessica overheard them again. She was in the kitchen putting away leftovers when she heard Jeffrey's voice from the hallway. "You need to chill out, man. You're being too obvious." "I'm not doing anything," Anderson replied, defensive. "Yeah, well, people are gonna notice. Just be smart about it." Jessica froze. What were they talking about? Be smart about what? She peeked around the corner and saw them standing close together, their faces serious, their voices hushed. When they noticed her, they smiled. "Hey, Jess, need any help in there?" Jeffrey called out, his tone suddenly bright and cheerful. "No, I'm good," Jessica said quickly, turning back to the sink. But her hands were shaking. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. She just didn't know what yet. 3 weeks later, Maria planned a family gathering. It was her birthday, and she wanted everyone together. Jessica didn't want to go. She'd been avoiding Jeffrey and Anderson as much as possible, making excuses whenever they reached out, ignoring their texts. But this was her mom's birthday. She couldn't skip it, so she went. The gathering was at Maria's house. About 20 people showed up: aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. The backyard was filled with laughter, music, the smell of grilled meat. Kids ran around with sparklers. Adults stood in clusters, drinking beer, catching up. Jessica tried to relax. She stayed close to her mom, chatted with her cousins, avoided eye contact with Jeffrey and Anderson. But they found her. They always found her. Jeffrey approached first, holding 2 bottles of beer. "Hey, Jess, haven't seen you in a while. You been hiding from us?" He laughed, but there was something sharp in his tone. No, just been busy with work, Jessica said, forcing a smile. Yeah, I bet. He handed her one of the beers. Here, take this. You look tense. Relax a little. Jessica took the beer but didn't drink it. She wasn't much of a drinker, and something about the way he was looking at her made her uneasy. Thanks, she said, then quickly walked away. But Anderson was right there. He'd been standing a few feet away, watching the whole interaction. Hey, Jessica, he said, stepping into her path. You look nice tonight. Thanks, she muttered, trying to move past him. But he put a hand on her arm, not aggressively, just enough to stop her. You okay? You seem off. I'm fine, Jessica said, pulling her arm away. Just tired. Yeah, well, if you need anything, you know where to find me. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. The rest of the evening was a blur. Jessica felt like she was being watched. Every time she looked up, either Jeffrey or Anderson was nearby, hovering, lingering. At one point, she went inside to use the bathroom, and when she came out, both of them were in the hallway. What are you guys doing? Jessica asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Just talking, Jeffrey said, shrugging. Why? Is that a crime now? No, never mind. She pushed past them and went back outside. But her hands were trembling. Her heart was racing. She felt trapped. She felt hunted. And she didn't know why. Not yet. But she was about to find out. The party started winding down around 10 p.m. People were hugging Maria, saying their goodbyes, promising to see her soon. Jessica was helping clean up, carrying plates into the kitchen, when Jeffrey appeared behind her. Hey, Jess, you got a sec? I need some help grabbing something from the garage. Jessica hesitated. Can't someone else help you? Everyone's leaving. Come on, it'll take 2 seconds. He was already walking toward the side door. Jessica looked around. Her mom was busy saying goodbye to guests. Her cousins were packing up their cars. No one was paying attention. Against her better judgment, Jessica followed Jeffrey. The garage was dimly lit, cluttered with old boxes, tools, and random furniture. Jeffrey walked to the back and pointed at a heavy-looking box. Just need you to hold this steady while I tape it up. Jessica walked over, still uneasy. She bent down to hold the box, and that's when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw Anderson. He was standing in the doorway, blocking the exit. What are you doing here? Jessica asked, her voice shaking. Helping, Anderson said simply. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Click, the sound of the lock. Jessica's blood ran cold. Why did you lock the door? Relax, Jeffrey said, still kneeling by the box. But his voice was different now, colder, calmer. We just want to talk to you. About what? Jessica's voice was rising. Open the door. I want to leave. Jess, come on, Jeffrey said, standing up now. Don't be dramatic. We're family. We're not going to hurt you. But the way he said it, the way Anderson was standing there, arms crossed, staring at her. Jessica knew. She knew. She knew this was bad. She knew she was in danger. Let me out, she said, her voice trembling. Now. Neither of them moved. You've been avoiding us, Anderson said. Why is that? I haven't been. Yes, you have, Jeffrey interrupted. And we're not stupid, Jess. We know you've been uncomfortable, but you don't need to be. We care about you. We've always cared about you. Jessica's back was against the wall now, literally. She was pressed against the cold concrete, her eyes darting between the two men. Please, she whispered, please just let me go. We will, Jeffrey said. But first, we need you to understand something. You're special to us, Jess. You always have been. And tonight, we're gonna show you just how special you are. Jessica tried to scream, but Jeffrey lunged forward and clamped a hand on her mouth. Anderson grabbed her arms. And in that moment, Jessica realized the terrible, horrifying truth. This wasn't random. This wasn't impulsive. They had planned this. Together. For who knows how long. And now, There was no escape. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. What happened next is something Jessica will never forget. Not because of the physical pain, though there was plenty of that, but because the hands that harmed her were hands she trusted. The voices that mocked her were voices she'd heard at birthday parties, at holiday dinners, at family gatherings. These weren't strangers. These were men who knew her favorite color, who knew her middle name, who knew the scar on her knee from when she fell off her bike at age 7. They knew her, and they destroyed her. Anyway, Jessica tried to fight. She clawed at Jeffrey's hands, tried to knee Anderson in the stomach, tried to scream through the hand pressed against her mouth. But they were stronger, bigger, and they worked together, like a team that had practiced this. One holding her down while the other. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut. She couldn't look at them. She couldn't look at what they were doing. All she could do was try to leave her body, try to go somewhere else in her mind, try to survive. At some point, she stopped fighting, not because she gave up, but because she realized something. If I fight too hard, they might kill me, and I need to live. I need to get out of here. I need to tell someone. So she went limp. She stopped screaming. She stopped resisting. And she waited. Waited for it to be over. "Good girl," Jeffrey whispered in her ear. "See? That wasn't so bad, was it?" Jessica wanted to vomit. She wanted to die. But she stayed silent. She stayed still. And she prayed. Prayed that someone would come looking for her. Prayed that someone would notice she was missing. Prayed that this nightmare would end. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, it stopped. Jeffrey stepped back, breathing heavily. Anderson let go of her arms. Jessica collapsed to the floor, gasping, sobbing, trembling. "You tell anyone about this," Jeffrey said, zipping up his pants, "and no one will believe you. You're just a confused kid. We're family. They'll think you're making it up. Or worse," Anderson added, "they'll think you wanted it." Jessica didn't respond. She couldn't. She just lay there, broken, shattered, destroyed. Jeffrey unlocked the door and walked out first, casual, like nothing had happened. Anderson followed, pausing to look back at Jessica one last time. "Clean yourself up," he said. "Your mom's looking for you." Then he left. Jessica lay there for a long time. She didn't know how long. Time didn't make sense anymore. Everything felt blurry, distant, like she was watching herself from outside her own body. Eventually, she forced herself to stand. Her legs shook. Her whole body ached. She looked around the garage, at the boxes, the tools, the concrete floor where it happened, and she felt like she was gonna be sick. She stumbled to the side door, the one that led to the backyard, and slipped outside. The cool night air hit her face, and she gasped, sucking in deep breaths, trying to calm down, trying to think. She could hear voices from the front of the house. People were still leaving. Her mom was laughing at something someone said. Everything sounded so normal, so impossibly normal. But Jessica felt like she was dying. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and scrolled through her contacts. She needed to call someone, but who? Her mom? No, not yet. She couldn't. She couldn't do that. Not here. Not now. She kept scrolling until she saw the name. Riley. Her best friend since high school. Riley would know what to do. Jessica pressed call and held the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice, then Riley's voice. "Hey Jess, what's up?" Jessica tried to speak, but all that came out was a sob. "Jess? Jess, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "No," Jessica whispered. "I'm not okay. I need help." "Where are you?" "At my mom's house, but I can't stay here. Riley, something happened. Something really bad." "I'm coming," Riley said immediately. "Don't move. Stay on the phone with me. I'm getting in my car right now." Jessica sank to the ground, her back against the house, her phone pressed to her ear as Riley kept talking, kept reassuring her, kept telling her she was going to be okay. But Jessica didn't feel okay. She felt destroyed. 20 minutes later, Riley pulled up. She found Jessica sitting in the backyard, her arms wrapped around her knees, rocking back and forth. "Oh my God, Jess," Riley breathed, kneeling beside her. "What happened?" Jessica looked up and Riley saw it. The tears, the bruises forming on her arms, the glazed look in her eyes. They hurt me," Jessica whispered. Who? Who hurt you?" "Jeffrey and Anderson. They... She couldn't finish the sentence, but Riley understood. Her face went pale. "We need to call the police," Riley said firmly. "No," Jessica said immediately. "No, I can't. My mom, the family, they'll what? Blame you? Jess, you were attacked. You were raped. This isn't your fault." "But they're family," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "No one's going to believe me. They're going to say I'm lying. They're going to say I wanted it. They're going to—" "Stop," Riley said, gripping Jessica's shoulders. "Stop. Listen to me. You are not lying. You did not want this, and we are going to report this right now, okay? You don't have to do this alone. I'm here. I'm not leaving you." Jessica looked at her friend, this person who had been by her side for years, who believed her without hesitation, who wasn't afraid, and she felt something shift inside her, a tiny spark of strength. "Okay," Jessica whispered. "Okay, let's go." Riley helped her to her feet, and together they walked to Riley's car. As they drove away from the house, Jessica looked back one last time. She saw her mom standing on the front porch, waving at a departing guest, smiling, oblivious. Jessica wanted to scream. She wanted to run back and tell her everything, but she couldn't, not yet. First, she needed to make sure this was real. First, she needed to report it. And then she would face her family. Riley drove Jessica straight to the hospital. The emergency room was bright, sterile, cold. A nurse took one look at Jessica, at the way she was trembling, at the bruises, at the look in her eyes, and immediately brought her to a private room. "My name is Nurse Karen," the woman said gently. "You're safe here. Can you tell me what happened?" Jessica told her, quietly, haltingly, with Riley holding her hand the whole time. Nurse Karen didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just listened. When Jessica finished, Nurse Karen nodded. "Okay, sweetheart, we're going to take care of you. We're going to do something called a rape kit. It's going to collect evidence, okay? I know it's invasive, and I know you're exhausted, but it's important. It will help if you decide to press charges." Jessica nodded. She felt numb. The rape kit took over an hour. It was painful, humiliating, invasive. Jessica cried through most of it, but Nurse Karen was patient, kind, and Riley stayed in the room the entire time, squeezing Jessica's hand, whispering that she was doing great, that she was so brave. When it was over, a police officer arrived. His name was Detective Harris. He was older, maybe in his 50s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. "Jessica," he said, sitting down across from her, "I know tonight has been terrible, but I need to ask you some questions. Can you do that for me?" Jessica nodded. "Can you tell me who did this?" Jessica swallowed hard. "My uncles, Jeffrey Rodriguez and Anderson Mitchell." Detective Harris wrote it down. "And where did this happen?" "At my mom's house, in the garage." "Do you remember what time?" "Around 10, maybe a little after." "And can you describe what happened?" Jessica closed her eyes. She didn't want to relive it, but she did. She told him everything, every awful, horrifying detail. When she finished, Detective Harris looked at her with something that looked like respect. "Jessica, you are incredibly brave. What you just did, coming forward, reporting this, that takes courage. And I want you to know we are going to take this seriously. We are going to investigate, and we are going to do everything in our power to bring these men to justice." Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. "Do you really believe me?" "Yes," Detective Harris said without hesitation. "I believe you." Let's pause for a moment. If you're still here watching Jessica's story, then you understand how important this is. Stories like this need to be heard. Survivors need to know they're not alone. So please, if this video has moved you, hit that like button, leave a comment, share this video. Your engagement matters. It helps this story reach people who need to hear it, people who might be going through something similar, people who need the courage to speak up. Don't underestimate the power of your support. A simple share could save a life. Now, let's continue. The investigation began the next morning. Detective Harris and his team went to Maria's house to examine the garage. They collected evidence, took photos, dusted for fingerprints. Maria was home when they arrived. She was confused, terrified, demanding to know what was going on. "Where's Jessica? Is she okay? What happened?" "Ma'am, we need to speak with you privately," Detective Harris said. They sat in the living room and he explained. Maria's face went through a dozen emotions at once: shock, disbelief, horror, anger. "No," she kept saying. "No, that's not possible. Jeffrey wouldn't. Anderson wouldn't. They're family. They love Jessica." "Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand this is difficult," Detective Harris said gently, "but we have evidence. We have Jessica's testimony, and we need to ask you some questions." Maria answered mechanically, her mind clearly elsewhere. Yes, Jeffrey and Anderson had been at the party. Yes, they'd been acting strange lately. Yes, Jessica had seemed uncomfortable around them. But she never thought, she never imagined. The next step was to bring Jeffrey and Anderson in for questioning. Detective Harris and two other officers went to Jeffrey's house first. Jeffrey answered the door in his bathrobe, coffee in hand, looking annoyed. "Can I help you?" "Jeffrey Rodriguez, we need you to come down to the station and answer some questions." "About what?" "About an incident that occurred last night at Maria Rodriguez's residence." Jeffrey's face didn't change. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look scared. He looked calm. Too calm. "Sure," he said. "Let me get dressed." At the station, Jeffrey sat across from Detective Harris and denied everything. "I don't know what Jessica told you, but she's lying. I didn't touch her. I would never hurt her. She's my niece, for God's sake." "Then why did we find your DNA in the garage?" Jeffrey's expression flickered, just for a second. "I was in the garage earlier in the day, helping Maria move some boxes, that's all." "And what about the bruises on Jessica's arms, the ones that match your hand size?" "I don't know. Maybe she got them somewhere else. Maybe she's trying to get attention. Kids do that, you know." Anderson's interview went similarly. He denied everything, claimed Jessica was confused, suggested she might be making it up because she was emotional or unstable. But the evidence didn't lie. The DNA, the bruises, the timeline, it all pointed to them. And then, a week into the investigation, something unexpected happened. A family member came forward. Jessica's cousin Emma called Detective Harris and asked to meet. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking, "about Jeffrey and Anderson." "What is it?" "When I was 16, something happened at a family reunion. They cornered me in a bathroom. But I fought them off. I ran, and I never told anyone because I was scared. But now, hearing what happened to Jessica, I can't stay silent anymore." Detective Harris felt his stomach drop. "Are you willing to testify to this?" "Yes," Emma said, "whatever it takes." With Emma's testimony and the mounting evidence, Detective Harris had enough to make an arrest. 2 weeks after the assault, a team of officers went to Jeffrey's house at 6 a.m. They knocked on the door. No answer. They knocked again. "Jeffrey Rodriguez, this is the police. Open the door." Still nothing. They could hear movement inside. Footsteps, the sound of something being dragged. "We're coming in," Detective Harris called. They kicked the door open. Jeffrey was in the living room, shoving papers into a fireplace, trying to burn them. "Stop right there," an officer shouted. Jeffrey froze. His face was pale, sweaty. He looked like a man who knew it was over. "Jeffrey Rodriguez, you're under arrest for sexual assault and conspiracy to commit sexual assault. You have the right to remain silent." As they cuffed him, Jeffrey didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor, his jaw clenched. Anderson's arrest happened an hour later. He was at work under a car when the officers arrived. Anderson Mitchell, "Yeah, what do you want?" "You're under arrest." Anderson tried to run. He bolted out the back door of the shop, but two officers were waiting. They tackled him to the ground, and he fought, screaming, swearing, insisting he didn't do anything wrong. But it didn't matter. The cuffs went on, and he was dragged to the police car, shouting the whole way. Jessica heard about the arrests from Detective Harris. She was at Riley's apartment, too afraid to go home, too afraid to face her family. When her phone rang and she saw his name, her heart raced. "Jessica, we got them, both of them. They're in custody." Jessica collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. She didn't know if it was relief or fear or grief or all three at once. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." "You did this, Jessica," Detective Harris said. "You spoke up. You were brave. And because of that, these men are off the streets. You should be proud." But Jessica didn't feel proud. She felt broken. And she knew the hardest part was still ahead: the trial. The trial began 6 months later. By then, Jessica had started therapy, trying to process what had happened, trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy. But the trial tore all of that apart. She had to relive everything, in front of strangers, in front of a judge, in front of Jeffrey and Anderson, who sat at the defense table staring at her with cold, hateful eyes. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Miss Brennan, presented the case methodically. She walked the jury through the timeline, the evidence, the DNA, the bruises, Emma's testimony about what had happened to her years ago. She painted a picture of two predators who had spent years grooming Jessica, waiting for the right moment to strike. "This was not a spontaneous act," Miss Brennan said, addressing the jury. "This was planned, calculated. These men knew exactly what they were doing. They isolated Jessica, they overpowered her, and they assaulted her, together." Then came Jessica's testimony. She walked to the witness stand, her legs shaking, her hands clenched into fists. Miss Brennan asked her to describe what happened. Jessica took a deep breath. And she told them. She told them everything about the texts, the weird comments, the tension, the party, the garage. She told them how Jeffrey covered her mouth, how Anderson held her down, how they worked together like a machine to destroy her. She told them how she tried to fight, how she eventually stopped fighting, how she thought she was going to die. By the time she finished, half the jury was in tears. The defense attorney, a slimy man named Mr. Callahan, tried to discredit her. "Isn't it true, Miss Martinez, that you've had mental health issues in the past?" "I've been in therapy, yes." "For depression?" "Yes." "And anxiety?" "Yes." "So isn't it possible that your memory of the events is unreliable?" Jessica looked him dead in the eye. "No, I remember exactly what they did to me." The defense tried everything. They claimed Jessica was lying for attention. They claimed she was confused. They claimed she consented and later regretted it. But the evidence was overwhelming. The DNA didn't lie. The bruises didn't lie. Emma's testimony didn't lie. And when the jury deliberated, it only took them 3 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty, on all counts. When the verdict was read, Anderson broke down. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Jeffrey didn't react. He just sat there, staring straight ahead, his face blank. Jessica, sitting in the gallery with Riley and her mom, felt her chest heave with sobs. Maria wrapped her arms around her and whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." The sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Lawson, looked at Jeffrey and Anderson with disgust. "What you did to Jessica Martinez is unconscionable. You betrayed her trust. You betrayed your family. You are predators of the worst kind, and you will be punished accordingly." Jeffrey was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Anderson was sentenced to 30. Neither of them will be eligible for parole for at least 15 years. As they were led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Jessica watched. She didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel relieved.
She just felt tired. But she also felt something else, a tiny spark of hope. Because she had done it. She had spoken up. She had fought back. And she had won. The months after the trial were hard. Jessica continued therapy twice a week, working through the trauma, the nightmares, the panic attacks. She struggled to trust people. She struggled to feel safe. But slowly, very slowly, she started to heal. Her mom was her biggest support. Maria blamed herself for not seeing the signs, for not protecting Jessica, and it took months of family therapy before they were able to rebuild their relationship. But they did, because they loved each other. And love, real love, doesn't give up. Jessica also became an advocate.
She started speaking at schools, at community centers, at survivor support groups. She told her story, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. If my story can help even one person speak up, then it's worth it, she told an audience once. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't let anyone tell you to stay silent. Your voice matters. What can we learn from Jessica's story? First, pay attention to red flags. Inappropriate comments, overly familiar behavior, attempts to isolate someone, these are warning signs. Don't ignore them. Second, believe survivors. When someone tells you they've been assaulted, don't question them, don't doubt them, believe them, and support them. Third, speak up. If you see something that doesn't feel right, say something. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Be the person who takes action. And finally, know that healing is possible. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's possible. Jessica is proof of that. She's still here, she's still fighting, and she's not letting what happened to her define her. She's defining herself on her own terms. Jessica's courage saved her life, and possibly many others. Because when we speak up, when we refuse to stay silent, we create a world where predators can't hide.